Good evening, all. See, today I'm going to touch all this requirements, what you need if you wanted to handle or manage like COVID or COVID related, like COVID kind of situations in the future, and now even in the next wave, if it is coming, if you plan to handle or manage from your hospital, what requirements you need in your hospital, that requirements outlines we are going to touch today. Now here actually all these requirements, why you need, what and all is required, that here this outline. So first one is like your infection prevention control related activities, what and all you required. And second thing is your space requirements to manage the patients inside, what and all infrastructure requirements you require. So under this space requirements, you will get this triage where the emergency like patients start initial stage where the patient needs to be handled. Then OPD like OPD consultation, like OPD areas, like consultation requirements, like patients who are stable and who are coming and walking, like how what requirements need for that kind of patients. Then after this two scenarios like triage and from OPD, if any patients require the admissions, like admission stay in the hospital, then what kind of like infrastructure you required inside the hospital. Then other like practice related environmental decontamination and equipment decontamination and disinfection. Then your handling of biomedical waste. So if you if you wanted to like manage or like wanted to handle this kind of situation patient, your entire area will contain all these core concepts. So your entire management will depends upon like how you are managing these activities. So in this, the first one is like infection prevention control goals. So why like what is that main essence in this, like main key concept in this to have the separate setup, or like to have separate infrastructure or to have some designated areas means the main thing is only the infection prevention control related things. So what is that, like why you wanted to like have the separate setup, like why you wanted to have the separate COVID hospital or separate building or separate entities or separate infrastructure or separate staff or all dedicated things, why you need to have means first thing is to keep your hospital staff who are handling or who are in the part of providing the treatment, to keep them safe. So that is the main thing. If they are not safe, the patients who are coming to your hospital, one thing, you cannot manage them, and apart from this, because of that scenario, and we are going to be a part of spreading the diseases to all also. So to prevent this kind of scenarios, we need to have the all this separate infrastructure. So to have to save the to keep your staff safe and to prevent these infections from the patient to your staff, and again from the patient to the other like their relatives and to the other visitors also, to prevent all kind of things. So you need to have this entire like separate COVID setup and like COVID setting or facility. Then apart from this, if organization wanted to manage this kind of like patients like very effectively, so you need to plan it as separate settings for this entire COVID. Now here, see this entire like what you require this space requirements and space provisions for this managing this COVID or like COVID kind of diseases, if any patients are like coming in the future or now. So here the first and foremost requirements is, if any hospital wanted to handle or wanted to like take the cases in their hospital, they should have a good strategic like to how they can take the patients and how they can manage the patient and how they can provide like how they can keep their like staff safe. So all these things they need to manage, they need to plan very strategically, like like all hospitals are taking, and my hospital also wanted to take it, and like otherwise like government like local authorities has like asked to take it and you have to take it. So if you take like without a strategic plan by with this kind of like situation, and finally you will end up like doing all the mess inside the hospital. One thing is like you may be providing, you may do good for a few patients, but you may end up doing harm to the many patients if you are going with the without strategic plan. So in this first thing, if you if any hospital, if any management wanted to go for the COVID, like COVID related or this kind of setups, first they have to think, the management has to think and like plan for like whether they wanted to go or not. So if they plan, if they decided they wanted to go, then the next step is how many patients, that means like how many patients or like how many beds they can handle if they go for that kind of setup. Like here, when you decide the bed setup, you need to see your resources also, like to manage that. Now, see, now the running hospital, they'll have a non-COVID beds and all, and they'll have that capacity, like patient load also. Then apart from that, if you wanted to take this COVID load, you need to decide it like how you can manage your resources. That includes your equipments, your main like manpower. So based on this manpower and your available resources, you need to see how many beds you can manage at given a point of time. If this decision is a perfect decision, then you can manage effectively. If this decision is something like not clear, then you may take the cases, you may take the patient, but your entire management will go daily. There is like you are on the war side, like you don't know what happens next. So the handling will become like every minute one question and one problem will be there, and hospital management will face very difficulty time to manage this if you don't have the proper plan, how many beds or how many patients are going to handle at given a point of time. So once you decide like how many patients, like how many beds you wanted to allocate for this COVID or like this kind of scenario, then you need to see and you need to plan what kind of patients you wanted to take it. See, every hospital, they cannot take like all critically ill patients, or every patient just they don't want they don't want to take it only just normal and like medium kind of like symptoms and clinical conditions. So they need to see based on their resources whether they will be able to manage the critical patients, or they can manage only like a mild patient, or they can manage only the initial patient. So these four scenarios, once the hospital management takes the proper kind of decision, then they can get the approval from the like local authorities or central authorities who are going to give the approval for this to run this kind of settings. So once you get this approval, so in that to get this approval, the basic requirements what you need to have inside this for providing this COVID patient means, first thing is every once you take this, if you have a two buildings, like if you have like two buildings or two three, like if you have a separate building setup, in that kind of scenario it is very easy, like you just allocate one building where that entire building can be managed with for this COVID patient. But if that is not the condition, if you want to create this kind of space inside your already existing building, only one building means, in that condition, then it is a very challenging thing, because see, to set up the COVID setup, to have this COVID setting or like COVID setup, it is like literally you are going to create a separate another hospital. That means you are going to replicate another hospital, like how your regular hospital is there. So if that is the case, means if you have if you have many buildings, in that cases, if you allocate one separate building, then it is very easy like to patch up the things and to add some annexures and maintain like separate hospital. But if it is if you have only one building, in that case, now it is very challenging, and you need to see how we can able to like arrange all this. Now what and all I am going to give this requirement. See, the first thing is every like this COVID setup, like COVID setting or like COVID like care center, it should have a separate entry, like to enter the patients like who are coming to the hospital. It should have a separate entry, and it should have a separate exit also. So that is the first and foremost requirements if you wanted to have the setup. Then after that, apart from your patient entry, you need to have the separate entry for your staff. That means like all kinds of stuff, your doctors, like your nurses and all your admin or supportive staff. To enter the staff also, you need to have the separate entry in that. So once you decide like where you can allocate, how you can create this, how you can manage these two entries, then after that you need to have the separate like areas where while entering the staff while entering inside this COVID setup, so they can put this all PPEs required for to handle inside. And again, like same way, once after they finish their work, if they are coming out, and again where they can remove their dress and come like how before entering inside this area how they were, and same way they can go out. So separate entries for the patient and your staff, and separate like areas for the wearing these PPEs and removing the PPEs to come out. Once you decide this areas arrangements how you can do, like where you are going to do it, next thing is you need to have a separate triage space, like separate triage space or emergency area. So where like patients can be handled in initial stage. So in this initial stage, like patients can be like triage like based on their needs, who needs like immediate care. That means like who needs to be like admission or who needs to be like just OPK treatment. So to decide that kind of to decide that their clinical needs, you need to have a separate screening, separate triage, separate screening area. So this triage area, screening area should not be mixed with your regular OPD. So most of the hospitals I have seen like where they are allocating the where they have only one building, and they are allocating the like same like they are trying to manage this COVID patients also in one area. So in that case, as I said starting, like here like instead of like giving a good care or like to taking care of this patient, we are going to create more damage than the treatment to the patient or your staff. So make sure that you are not mixing or merging any of these triage areas with your normal patient's area. And next one is like a earmarked space or like patient at like patient or waiting area for all who are waiting for this patient like for the treatment.
Excuse
So
me, sir.
here,
3 more minutes to this.
yeah, I'm finished. So you need to have the separate area, a separate waiting area for the patient. And after this, you need to have like once this triaging is done, then we can decide it whether patients can go for the admission or patient can be treated like given like if they are not positive, then you can treat on the OPD basis, then they can go home. So then after this, like after this basic requirement, then if you wanted to manage this when it comes to the infrastructure related, like for to manage this admitted patients very effectively, the key requirements is like this medical gases requirement. So we need to actually, if it is a normal cases means we need to have the minimum 2 sources. But when it comes to this kind of condition, it is good to have the at least minimum 3 or like 2 to 3, or if you have 4 resources of this medical gases also, it is very good. And apart from this, you need to have a specific a separate area where you can receive this this dead bodies, and where you can disinfect the dead bodies, and where you can pack it, and where you can give it to the further activities. Then here just I wanted to touch it like how like everybody will have doubts like how we can create this negative pressure room and positive pressure rooms like when in this condition. See, when you have when your hospital is having a like this HVAC system, or if you have like already this air conditioning system, it is very easy to create a negative pressure rooms. Like your exhaust air can be like 10% more when it comes to the like inlet area means by default automatically it will get create a positive negative pressure room. But all the hospitals actually now, when like even village areas also, we are going to convert this like we are going to change normal hospital also into the like this negative like for this COVID center means, in that cases it is very difficult to like make this all HVAC negative pressure rooms. So in that case, that hospitals what they can do is they can allocate all the single rooms. So in that case, in this single rooms, they can open the windows and keep the even doors also like open. So here the fresh air will come and go. And in that rooms, if they have any ACs, mean they can switch off the ACs, because these ACs are the like recirculation type. So when you are not able to create a negative pressure, at least you make sure that you are keeping a fresh air in that area. So this temporary arrangements can be done like if you don't have the negative pressure rooms. Now most of the hospitals are going with only the second area, where just they are using the single rooms and keeping like allowing more fresh airs in that area. So either first case where if you have like HVAC system and you can create a proper negative rooms, otherwise you can go ahead with the second alternatives. And triage area, as I said, basic requirements, you will have a separate, you will have like minimum beds, how many you wanted to handle it. Then with separate like waiting area with minimum 1 meter distance between patient to patient. And in this area, you need to use the proper PPEs. If patients are with this kind of symptoms, you can provide to them, and even staff who are handling the patient also should use this proper PPEs. And this is basic screening, like how it happens as per the WHO. And the last one is, this is like biomedical waste. I'm just touching this biomedical waste management only, like one practice related one concept. See, this biomedical waste management for this COVID patients also, it is the same like how our regular biomedical waste. But here, like here also you'll have yellow, red, white, blue, all this kind of bin. But here, like instead of using a single liner, here you are going to use the 2 plastic covers to prevent all this leakages or any kind of damages to this waste while collection, while transporting, and while sending to the outside. Then apart from that, you need to have the labeling specifically like it is a COVID like COVID patients waste, so that the treating plant people will identify that waste, like identify and treat it carefully as per the norms, how it should be treated. So these are the basic requirements what I have touched it.